The following thoughts on Hoppe Hour do not represent Cox Media Group or its sponsoring. Anything you hear may and will be used against you. Thank you. Voted as best local podcast in Tampa Bay by the Creative Loafing. You're listening to Hoppe Hour.
What up? What's happening? This is Hoppe Hour. I am your host, Ryan Hoppe. And on the phone line is somebody I'm glad I was finally able to book. I felt like a bad person for a while. On the phone line is the producer of the Roger and JP show, which is heard every morning on 102.3 WBAB in Long Island and middays on 102.5 The Bone. Brett is on Hoppe Hour. What's up, dude?
What's up, Hoppy? Glad we got to work this out.
Yeah, man. I feel bad because I had Roger and JP on and I had RBF. And then the few times I've phone screened over the last few months, JP would make jokes about how you have to get Brett on. And I'm serious when I say I've been really busy with promotion events. I haven't been dodging you, bro.
I know you haven't. You're busy getting everybody else on the show but me. It's fine. I understand.
That's not the way it is, man. I've always liked you, dude. We had a fun time. You guys were a little bit tipsy at the bar crawl. I'm not allowed to drink on a job, so I wasn't. But I remember me and you and Roger and JP had some good talks about radio at the bars in downtown St. Pete last August.
Absolutely, and you've come a long way since then.
Because back then, I was trying way too hard. I feel like that was kind of the turning point, though, when I was just kind of being myself. But even before you guys got on the bone, I was a hot mess, Brett. I was trying way too hard in this radio business, you know?
But guess what? Now you're getting exposure on Calta Show. You obviously get it on our show. You're pretty much a Bone staple no matter where you are.
I was talking to Todd, who works here at 102.5 The Bone, in a break room about your show, and I was saying how you guys are really good at getting people to call in and interact. Is that because of your content? Would you say that's because of Roger and JP? What do you guys focus on to bring in the intensity of the calls?
Well, I think with Roger, he's generally the good guy, and JP is the say whatever comes first to his head guy, whether it be positive or negative. And because of that, it's always been a big balance, and that's why they've been so successful on Long Island for 16, 17 years now. And we're almost coming up on our 1-year anniversary on the Bone, and I think people can relate to it, whether you pick Roger's side or JP's side, or even obviously now RBF and my side. We all bring something different to the table, and I think if you're listening, we try to talk about what's going on in the world and what's going on in our lives, in our own personal lives. We really put it out there, and I think so some way, shape, or form you're going to relate to whatever we're talking about.
What I like about your show, too, is this is the first time that Roger and JP have done full-time talk radio, and it comes off absolutely natural. But at first, when you guys went from doing a music-intensive morning show and now a talk show afterwards, how nerve-wracking was it? Or were you guys just kind of in the zone last August?
I would say, we weren't not nervous. It was definitely, because right now, and we still do the morning show, and that's probably the biggest balance, too, is that on our morning show on Long Island, we are talking for 2 or 3 minutes at a time in between songs. And it might be a minute here as well, coming out of commercials. We're really restricted, so when we had the opportunity to do the Bone and talk for 15, 20 minutes at a time and really let topics develop, we were excited about it, and obviously scared, too, because we were so used to keeping it tight, and now I think it's kind of spilled over a little bit onto the morning show on Long Island with BAB that we might talk a little too much now. So now those 3-minute breaks have become 4 and 5 because we've been so comfortable with doing the Bone. And I think to have everybody so accepting of the show in such a short period of time has been great.
What is the difference between getting prepped for the morning show and then getting prepped for the midday show overall?
It's the same. We look at topics the same way. We want to see where we can take things, and obviously some topics are better suited for the Bone than they are in the morning show. Not that we don't take topics and continue with them throughout the morning show with the music, but it's a lot easier to develop topics on the bone because we can sit there and have a discussion for 10, 15 minutes, and then the callers jump in. With, and obviously with RBF and Monica on the show too, if we find a female story, we're going to try to, female-related story, we're going to try and put that for the bone. That's probably the biggest difference is when we're talking about sexual stories or female-related stories, we might do those more on the bone because we have female interaction on the show with Monica and RBF than we do on the Long Island show where RBF is not a part of the show, neither is Monica, obviously.
When I'm running the board overnight for 102.5 The Bone on Sundays from 2 to 6 a.m., I get to listen to your shows from Friday from 3 to 6 a.m. And what I like is you guys have done a really brilliant job of bringing in RBF. Like, she comes off very natural. Did you guys see that ahead of time, or did she kind of come out of the woodwork with that?
Well, she was our intern on Long Island, and JP definitely noticed it first. Not that we didn't realize it, but JP really saw something in her. And pretty much what you hear on the air with her, and you've spoken to her, on and off the air, and obviously doing a Hoppe Hour show with her, who you hear on the air is who she is off the air. And that's why people love her so much, because she is 100% legit with who she is, and she is not ashamed of anything she's done or is going to do.
And now, what I want to ask you, too, is this. Has joining radio sort of opened you up where now you have to be more honest on air? Like for me, when I first went into radio, I never wanted to talk about my learning disability or the fact that I take meds. But now I'm very open about it, and I'm being myself. When you first went into radio, would you say you tried to overcompensate a little bit?
I think everyone in radio does. You try to, because you don't want everyone to know everything about your life. So I think everyone in radio, you'll tell a story to a point. And me personally, I'm definitely more reserved. I like to have fun. I like to make fun of people. Obviously, I like to do character voices. But I'll tell stuff on the air about my life. I haven't gone into everything, but definitely the Bone Show, talking, again at that length, has definitely enabled me to talk longer and more open about my own self, and stuff that I might not do with the shorter format on BAB, having that less time to talk. But I think it's almost like JP says, it's like a therapy session sometimes, or you had that question out there that you might not necessarily talk about with your friends, but you know what? We'll talk about it on the air and get different opinions from everyone else. I think on the air tend to say a little bit less than you want to. You give them just enough facts. You don't want people coming up to you in the streets and, hey, how about that situation? I think, JP even had an issue recently where he was eating with his family, and someone came up to him and said, hey, this is your wife, Nicole. This is your daughter. This is your son. Hey, good to meet you. I feel like I know you. So obviously you talk about your family, but when someone's coming up to you in person and kind of telling details about yourself, we kind of forget sometimes that we're not just talking into a microphone. What you're saying holds even more truth than with than what we expect it to hold.
That is the best point that I've ever heard on the show, because when I had that very awkward argument with my girlfriend's dad, my ex-girlfriend's dad, rather, I just thought I was talking to you, RBF, Roger, JP, Monica, and the dad. I worked a Tampa Bay Lightning game that night, and I would say I got recognized 9 times just because I'm 6'9" and awkward. And every person said, man, that was brutal hearing you argue with the dad on air. And I went, oh, wait. Everybody in Tampa Bay and anybody who's listening or watching online heard that. So it is kind of weird how you feel like you're just talking to the 5 people that are on the show, but we seem to forget that we're talking to any potential listener in this major market,
And even in this day and age, it's not just, we talked about it on the radio, forget about it. It's now on the radio, and obviously this podcast is everywhere, so anyone can download it, listen anytime. With the Bone podcast or the BAB podcast, this stuff is recorded and saved forever and put online. So it's not just, hey, I said it on the air, maybe you heard it, maybe you didn't, maybe you taped it on cassette, with your cassette recorder 20-something years ago. Now it's crystal clear and broadcast for everyone, anywhere, anytime. So you got to be real careful sometimes with what you say and what you don't say.
Now, one of the best parts about the show is when you do your voices. Have you grown into that role over the years, or were you the guy that would do voices like when you were in middle school?
Yeah, I would definitely do voices. I was voted, surprisingly, voted class clown in high school. I got along with everybody. I didn't necessarily fit in with one clique, but I got along with everybody. And I think one of those things that helped me do that is, doing impressions and impersonating the teachers and that kind of stuff. And so I think that's helped me over the years, because obviously everybody likes to laugh, and doing those voices that people know, definitely relaxes the situation. And what's the funniest stuff with doing RBS Dad and Sean's mom and that kind of stuff, I just kind of riff off of it. That RBS Dad thing came from a story we were telling about our dad, and I'm like, is that how Sunday dinner goes? And then he's throwing spaghetti on the wall saying, hey, that's it, that's enough! And then next thing you know, we got a voice born. And same thing with Sean's mom. They're talking about having her boyfriend's mom having sex upstairs in the room or something like that near her, and it's just, I'm calling from the room next door, from upstairs. Sean, how's it going? Mommy loves you. Okay, we're watching Blue Bloods. Just stupid random stuff, because it happened on a Friday night, and my wife watches Blue Bloods, so in my head I'm thinking, okay, Blue Bloods is on, and maybe Sean's mom is watching it. And that's the best thing, too, is that they trust me, Roger and JP trust me to do these voices. We're not sitting there planning every sketch out and planning everything we say. We might say, hey, you know what? Maybe throw Sean's mom in here. But even that's rare, where we'll say, hey, maybe do that voice here. It's more of I'm listening for the situation. I'm waiting for a story to develop. And if I think the voice fits in, no matter whether it's RBS family or any character voice that I may do, I'll throw it in there, and if it works, it works. If it doesn't, we'll try again next time.
What I like about your show and what I like about your role on the show is you guys don't try too hard. And I feel like you guys know when it's time to move on from the voices or when it's time to move on from a topic, even if you have calls on the line, because I feel like a lot of shows, and none on the bone because everyone knows how to run content, but a lot of shows in radio sometimes get so ego-driven that they want to hear themselves talk. You know what I mean?
Absolutely, and I think that's something that we have all together collectively have done very well as far as we'll kind of ask each other. We got a whole bunch of calls sitting on the line right now, and we just talked about this for a half hour. Do we continue? Do we stop? What do we do? You know what? That last call was pretty funny. That was a good way to end it. Let's go forward. And there's other times too where we think a topic is not going to go very far, and next thing you know, an hour later, we're continuing to talk about it. So it's really hit or miss, but you're right. It is a real tough to balance when is too much. Just because you have so many callers on the phone doesn't mean that it's interesting for everybody. So you got to have that balance of knowing when to stop a topic, and I think, like you said, we've done that pretty well more often than not.
Now, how has everything been going with the show since the new edition of Bone TV about 6 months ago?
We were a little, apprehensive about it at first, but you know what? It's added this other dynamic. We wish we could have a couple more cameras in there. Maybe over time we will. Who knows? But I think between that and the chat room, it's added another layer to the show. And so if when we had that S&M coupling.
Oh yeah.
Not that everybody wants to see it, but if they want to check it out and go, what's going on here, they can tune in and check it out and either stay with it or, we don't have to describe everything that's going on. Not that everybody's watching Bone TV, but a lot of people are checking it out and, dealing with everyone in the chat room too. It's really a great addition, and I'm more comfortable with it than I thought I would. I think we all are. I think we're all more comfortable with it than we would be.
What I loved about that whole segment when you guys had the weird couple on was nobody looked really that comfortable in the room, especially JP. Everybody looked pretty horrified at what was going down in there.
JP is known to not do that to that extreme, but he's admitted he likes a little pain with this stuff. I would say Roger was probably the most uncomfortable with it. We all are a little bit. Now, we had them on our Long Island show on WBAB about a year ago, and so we kind of knew what to expect. They did something a little different this time, but we basically knew what to expect. And again, that's a situation where what you hear on the air is exactly how they are off the air. The way Master John, that guy, was talking, and they were nice people, but obviously it's not the lifestyle that I don't think any of us on the show are going to be doing anytime soon.
Now, I've wanted to ask you guys this just because I'm curious about it. How did you guys first get into contact with the one and only legend known as Balls?
I was trying to think about that the other day. I was thinking about how I don't even know his real name. And do you know his real name?
It's Michael, and then his last name begins with D. Because he actually sent me a friend request on Facebook, and I'm like, where have I seen this face? And I'm like, oh, Balls from the golf tournament, because during the whole golf tournament, he was with JP. It was one of the funniest things ever.
I know. I would love to hang out with Balls in person there. He's a character, and he's so in tune with the show, and he's another case of where he's himself. Even though he's got the name Balls, he's not hiding anything, and that's what obviously makes him so great. He'll be drinking a beer on the toilet at 11 o'clock in the morning, and he'll post pictures and now videos of it on Snapchat. Not think twice, and I think that's why we all like him, and he's hysterical. And him and Aries, a couple of callers that obviously stand out in my head from being there from kind of the beginning and sticking with us, and it's been a real positive experience doing this Tampa show.
What is the weirdest call you guys have ever had? Is there one that comes to your mind so far, being on the phone for a year?
Yeah, and it happened recently too, and we were talking about, I don't even know what the topic was. I guess, I don't know, somehow a woman called up and talking about, maybe it was a sexual partner, some content we were doing about sexual partners, and a woman had called up and said that she was at Woodstock in 1969 and had sex with 50 different guys in the weekend. And that it wasn't a big deal because, when you break it down, it's only about, 15, 16 guys a day. I couldn't wrap my brain around it, and I even asked the question to her. I'm like, that was a festival known for being muddy and dirty and no food and just an all-around mess, and you're having sex with 15, 16 guys a day. How are you cleaning up? And she's just like, that was the time. It's okay. I can't even picture having sex with three different women in one day like that without getting kind of grossed out. But 15 guys a day, and she was proud of it.
Well, here's what's weird about that is everybody now in the media and everybody that calls radio shows has been hating on my generation lately, the millennials, saying that we're slutty, saying that we're crazy on social media, this and that. Can you imagine if social media was around back then? I'm not saying that the baby boomers are as bad as us, but I feel like things that happened at those events would be well documented. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think social media has added a lot to, and I think it might have in some cases give you guys a bad rap because, it's not like these things didn't happen. She had sex with those guys at Woodstock in 1969. And there's obviously crazy stories like that going around today. But, like you said, with social media, they're posting it on Facebook. They're posting it on Snapchat. They're posting it on Twitter. They're posting every little thing that they do, for better or for worse, on social media. And, I remember as a kid, did you ever hear something called the PXL 2000?
Yeah.
That was where you took a audio cassette and you put it into this video camera, and it could be like a kid's camera. So you record video, it'd be in black and white, and you can record only like 2 minutes of video, and that's what we did then. And I probably would have been posting stuff on YouTube, posting stuff on social media as a kid, instead of my tape recorder at home or video camera or whatever. So I think we've always kind of been like this. And I think these crazy stories that we read about every day have always been around, but because we can get access to these stories so quickly now, it seems like, what's this world coming to?
What is the craziest thing that maybe happened when you were younger where you're very happy that Snapchat wasn't there in the 90s or 80s? Like, was there a drinking party where maybe you were hitting on a girl that was out of your league and she slaps you across the face or something?
Oh, man. Got me thinking now. I would say, yeah, there's probably, I did have, it's kind of, I wish I had it on video. It was kind of like a shining moment where I had two girls who I was friends with. I was kind of dating when I was like 17, 18, and they both kind of found out and then were fighting over me at a party. So I wish I did have that.
Wow, look at you, Casanova. You're quite the ladies' man, Brett. Two girls fighting over you.
I'm really not, so that's why it's kind of a standout moment. And I wish I did have that on. I don't know about social media, but definitely have a video of it on my phone if we had cell phones at the time that recorded video.
Now, speaking of that.
90, 95, 96 in that area.
Yeah. Now, with dating girls and having relationships in radio, especially in talk radio, you're bound to talk about them on air, and they're bound to become a character of your life and of the show that you're on. So how do you break it down for a girl? Because that's basically why me and my ex broke up, is because she didn't want to be talked about on air. And I'm like, well, I'm kind of in the entertainment business, so it's not going to slow down at all. So what's the key to, like, finding the right girl that's cool with that?
I think you just got to find it. And, not that my wife's cool with everything that I talk about. Like, if there's something major, like, we had talked about how my son got a notice home saying he might be exposed to lice. And we thought, hey, we were cool. He didn't have anything. We got all checked out. And then my wife wound up getting it, and they said she got it because he might have had, like, a little bug, and it jumped from his head to her hair when they hugged or something like that. And so that's why he didn't have it. I have a shaved head. I didn't get it. And my wife wound up getting it. And they say, ironically, that lice goes to clean hair. And my wife definitely she has thick, clean hair, and it went right to her. So we talked about that on the air. And that I did ask for permission to speak about that prior to talking about it, because you don't necessarily want that information on the air. And we did talk about it once it was resolved. She had just found the treatment, and because she had gone to a couple specialists, and they said, oh, no, it's not lice, not lice. And then obviously it turned out to be. So I think it depends on, you just got to find that right person, and you got to let them know straight out that, there's going to be things that I'm going to be talking about on the air. And hopefully they agree with it, because usually that kind of stuff makes for the best content.
Now, what do you do in your free time so that you don't burn out, especially since you're producing two major market radio shows? What are some things that you like to do for fun?
It's real tough to find that balance, especially with a 5-year-old. I'm pretty much working from 4:30 in the morning till at least 2:30 in the afternoon. I'm picking my son up from school most of those days, and we're doing homework. and trying to play with him, and then prepping for the next day and dinner and all that. So it's real tough to find that time. I'm hoping to find more time sooner than later. Trying to figure it out. It's a real tough balance with the two shows. But in general, I like to go to Yankee games. That's probably one of the top, or even obviously being from Long Island in New York, Islander games. So pretty much sporting events. If there's a good concert in the area, I'll go. Hanging out, going out to dinner with some friends. I'm at an age now where all my friends are, they're married and generally with a kid or two. So we're all trying to find that balance to hang out. So we're not really hanging out as much as we used to. And when we do, it's usually with kids. But like this weekend, too, my friend, is having a whiskey tasting party at his house. We're going to get a bunch of guys together, and we're going to hang out and drink whiskey all day.
Man, that sounds like a classy time. Is that what you New Yorkers do, is try out whiskey?
Not even close. We started this last year because we were all like, wow, we really got to do something just for us. and they have this Japanese whiskey, and I see this whiskey. We should just have a whiskey tasting party with steak in my backyard, and we'll do it. And so now it's evolved into this big thing. We had probably about 10, 15 guys last year. It's probably going to double that this year.
Now, I want to ask you guys this. Where do you want to see the show within the next 5 years? Would you want to be heard in different markets between the 11 to 2 slot? Are you guys happy with where you're at? What is your overall take on where the show's at in 2016? I
think, ideally, we would like to do whatever we do. I don't know if we'd like to nobody wants to be balancing two shows, two different types of shows, at least not in the back-to-back sense that we're doing it. I think if we can do, I don't want to speak for them, for Roger and JP, I think definitely from my perspective, if we could do one solid show, kind of in the style of The Bone, on multiple markets, just doing that one show, whether it be middays, mornings, afternoons, whatever, I think that would probably be the goal. Do I think it will happen? No. Do I think we can extend our reach to other stations? I do. So whether that continues to be doing the two shows and having one of them being syndicated out, I think that probably would be the more realistic goal of continuing to do the two shows and having one of them be syndicated to multiple stations.
Now, if people want to hear the Roger and JP show, where can they hear both shows?
For the Long Island show, we're on 5:30 in the morning to 10 a.m., Monday through Friday, and that is on WBAB.com. You can download the WBAB app for free as well. And for the Bone show, we're on 11 a.m. to 2 p.m., and that is on theboneonline.com and also on the free Bone app.
Well, dude, I'm really glad I was finally able to make this interview happen. I felt bad that I had the rest of the crew on. And even before JP called me out on air, I had you on a list of like 7 people that I've been meaning to book. So I'm glad we were finally able to make this podcast gold happen.
A pleasure, Hoppy. Thank you. And now you got to get Special Ted next. Move him up the list.
Should I do that? Would Special Ted be a good guest for Hoppe Hour?
He would be a good guest for about 7 Hoppe Hours. You're going to do a 7-part edition and talk about the history of radio and every format and every DJ that's ever lived across the country.
Dude, he basically sounds like me because I'm sort of a savant for radio, so I think I'm going to probably message him this afternoon.
Yeah, that would be a good idea. And again, you would probably need, I don't know how interesting it would be for people not fans of Inside Radio, but obviously Ted puts his little special twist on it, and he'll be able to do every voice of every DJ that's ever lived.
Well, Brett, keep up the good work. It's been a lot of fun having you on Hoppe Hour, my man.
Thanks, bro. Talk to you later, Hoppy.
Sounds good. Talk to you later, bro. This has been Hoppe Hour. I am your host, Ryan Hoppe, saying peace out.
Hoppe Hour. Hoppe Hour.